Okay, hang on. I got to go set some stuff up. I realize it must be very strange, like anybody who's watching these things online, that I'm actually forgot the right thing. Yeah, that I'm just sitting here silently for the first minute or so, ticking away at things, and people must wonder what exactly is that if they don't not aware of the fact that I'm putting up links. And I'm sure there's some easier way to do it, and I'm sure everybody out there is thinking, "Geez, what a boomer." Um, okay, I don't care. I don't care. I don't care. Oh, my sound is off. Actually, I might as well leave that off for a moment. Okay. Because I'm assuming people can still hear me through the microphone, but maybe not. Dun, dun, dun. Come on. Okay. So anyway, so that's why I'm just sitting here is because I'm actually putting up links to my other page, etc., etc. Um, right, and I need to do this, and I've got to do all these ridiculous, jump through all these crazy ass hoops that they've made for me. Oh, instead of just being able to do it simultaneously on 2 or 3 different sites. Oh well, I'll figure it out one of these days when I'm not so busy. Okay, yes, thank you. Now let's go over here. Let's go back there. Change that back to where it should be. And we'll do this. And hopefully we will be ready to start in just a moment. Okay. And so it goes. Good. Well, we'll see now if anybody's actually managed to figure this out as to where I am and what's going on time-wise. Oh, God, go away. Anyway, hello, good evening, good morning, good afternoon. I'm Tad. I write, I read, I sing, I dance. I do pretty much whatever I need to do to get by in this hellish world in which we live. Nah, ain't that bad. It's pretty much like it always was. I was thinking about this today. I was doom scrolling through, the news and, reading various things and looking at various shocking, horrifying headlines about all different kinds of stuff. And I realized, I remember there was a period back in the like late 70s, early 80s when I was like listening to the news every day and got hideously depressed. And then I just like stopped listening to the news for a while, and my life didn't really change that much, but I was a lot less depressed. So I think there is, there's so much of the, the news that we consume is based on either, the unusual, the frightening, the whatever. That when you expose yourself to a huge amount of it, I mean, yes, the problems are real. We have real problems. There are all kinds of things to worry about. But when you expose yourself to things all the time that you can't do anything about immediately, there's got to be a negative effect. There's got to be something that is it's stress for one thing, and we all know that continuous stress eventually breaks down people's bodies. It breaks down their mental health. So I'm trying to spend a little less time looking at all the dire things happening. I'm trying to spend a little less time getting into political arguments because I don't, sometimes I feel like I have to say something, but I don't feel it makes that much of a difference. It's, that's what social media is just people making judgments on each other and shouting at each other. And frankly, I don't want to, I don't want to give a platform to people who have nothing more useful to say than to come on every time I say, can't we be nicer to people? Couldn't we take better care of our democracy and have people go, hey, you're such a whatever, And if I really feel like there's something that I need to say or something that I need to point out or refute when people like are too obviously passing misinformation, then I'll do so. But I'm definitely, I am not as willing to jump into the fray as I used to be because I just don't think it does much good. If everybody's shouting and then you come in and you shout also, no matter how sensibly you shout, you're still just another shouting person. So anyway, that was on my mind today. I didn't mean to like launch out into a whole thing about it. What else has been on my mind? Not a lot. Again, working. The new book is out. I'm working on Into the Narrow Dark and doing a lot of fine tuning now at this point because there's a lot of things where I'm going like, I don't know if this point has been made clear. Or conversely, I think I've made this point a little too clear or I've hammered it in too many times or, people get it. People will get it. Give your readers some trust. There we go. That's a little better, a little less glaring. So I'm doing that kind of fine tuning of things, which also oftentimes becomes this kind of snipe hunt about language where you're looking, like 5 different ways to write the same sentence and you're trying them different ways because you're just not happy with it and you're going over it and throwing that one out and throwing another one in and trying it again. And then, sometimes it actually leads to something useful, which is where you say, actually, I don't need that sentence. Or, I could completely do that a different way and just scrap that whole paragraph and, the point would still be made. But other times you just find yourself, as the old saying goes, arranging deck chairs on the Titanic. You're just changing things around, but they're not actually going to change the impact of what you're doing. This is also a thing that you learn. This is one of the differences about being a professional working anything, but in my case, a working writer, is that there comes a certain point. You never finish. You never really finish working on anything. What you do is you finally get to the point where you say, I don't think the changes that I could make from here on out are really going to be that beneficial. They're not really going to make that much difference. And at a certain point, I have to let it go. I have to just send it out and say, that's it. It's done. And then even then, there's like at least one more chance because it comes back copy edited and all that stuff. And you have to deal with queries and you have another chance to change things. So, we never really finish. And one of the things I often tell new or aspiring writers is, just skip the perfection stuff. Quit trying to, you can fiddle with that stuff late in the process, but early in the process, just get things done. Just move from scene to scene, chapter to chapter, put the bones in, get the big stuff, learn how to finish a story. Don't spend all your time trying to perfect the first chapter so that whoever sees it will fall in love with it. That won't happen. It will not happen. So, I'm at that stage now where there are several of these things where I'm staring at them until I'm cross-eyed. And then every now and then I have the good sense to say, why? Why am I spending so much time on this? Which is an interesting perspective. And it's something that I think that I need to learn to apply to many parts of my life. I try, but to say, why am I worrying about this? Is there anything that I can do that will change it or fix it or improve it in some positive way? If not, for whatever reason, do something else, and I'm very big on that. I'm big on that with worry in general. It's one thing if you have to make a decision, if you have to choose a course, if you have to pick between 2 painful alternatives or whatever. Yeah, you still have to make decisions in life. But worrying is just, especially worrying about things that aren't going to happen for a while or that you don't know the actual shape of yet. What's going to happen 2 years from now if so-and-so says to us such and such, blah, blah, blah. And I try to always think, is there anything I can do about that right now? Except worry, except fret, except go through zillions of possibilities in my mind. Well, I already do that in my work. I'm constantly juggling different possibilities and 12 different directions I can take everything. I don't need to do that in the rest of my life too. As a matter of fact, I don't think it's good for people. I think that it's just something that consumes you and can really make you, as I said earlier, kind of sick. Just stress. If you can fix something or if you can do something about it or you need to, yes, then by all means, go ahead and do it. If you can't, put it aside until you can do something about it or until you know enough to make decisions or whatever the case may be. Don't spin your wheels. Don't fret. Don't worry. Don't agonize. It'll make you crazy. Well, that was a large chunk of grandfatherly advice. So what else has been going on? We had, as you can see in the background, those are not my balloons. Those are not Deb's balloons. Those are the balloons for the birthday of one of our young people. I tend not to use names most of the time here, just out of respect for their privacy. Not because I'm ashamed of any of them, because I'm not. They're all lovely young people and great fun. And one of them had a birthday. And another one's having a birthday coming up, and then Deb's birthday comes up in December. So we've gone through that lovely time of the year in which there were no birthdays, and we are now, it's like you click, 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 and the roller coaster car keeps climbing and climbing, and that's where we were up through September, October, climbing, click, 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 and now the downhill, screaming, upside down, flipping around, G-force part of the year is just about to start with birthdays and Thanksgiving, family get-togethers, Christmas, friends in town, all that stuff. I Well, you can guess. You probably know me well enough now to realize how much I dread things like this. Not because I don't love people and because I don't love my friends and family. I do, but because I'm always behind. I've got nobody else to do my work for me if I take a day off. And the holidays just become, again, it's a stress factory. But I'll take care of the things I have to take care of, and then I'll move on because that's all I can do. So everybody will get their presents. We'll get a tree. We'll have birthday dinners. We will take care of all the other things, and that's all that counts. Just we'll do what needs to be done, which is pretty much the definition of humanity, and certainly of the adult stretch of humanity. That part of your life. You just show up and get stuff done. I wish I could tell my kids, my poor kids, I wish I could tell them, just wait till you're grown up. Everything is great. And in many ways it is. You know yourself better. You have more control over your world. Usually you're at least somewhat settled in what you're doing and who you're with and all that kind of stuff. And in those ways, it is definitely better. But you also, as you become a grown up, you realize that the stuff that basically the structure of your entire life up through about age 20 or so is like, I don't know. I forgot. Oh, I'm late. It's, that kind of stuff. And then, unfortunately, you become an adult and it's like, oh, if I don't show up on time, I lose my job and my family starves. Or, if we don't pick up after ourselves, the house turns into a garbage pit or whatever it is, and you're too aware of that stuff. You can't hide from it anymore. And it's like, if somebody doesn't do this, we're in trouble. So that part of adulthood sucks, but that's how it is. That's it. And that's what I unfortunately keep telling my kids is, look, you guys are bitching now about, the stuff that you have to do. Trust me. This is the golden age. Okay. If you don't want to look old, grumpy, and tired like your father, then develop some better habits than I developed. So I didn't have to develop them all later in life. But I doubt anybody's listening to me because that's not how we learn. I mean, my parents had all kinds of wise things to say to me, and I would go like, totally, Mom, Dad, totally, got it. I'm hearing you, yeah. And then, of course, I'd go out and keep doing the same stupid things until they blew up in my face. And then I'd go, oh, that's what they were talking about. Whoa. I guess I shouldn't do that anymore, And I'm sure my kids, to some extent, are going to do that too. Well, I know they already are doing that to some extent. Anyway, enough tad babble. We're all fine here. As I said, we just had a birthday for one of our young people, and that we're going out tomorrow to have the dinner part of the birthday to what looks like a very cool restaurant. And I'm working on the books, and everybody is in decent health. And saw my friend Sean Speakman, who runs the signed page, and unfortunately he had to get back in his car and drive back north before we had much chance to hang out, but that was good anyway. So hi Sean, I hope you got home safely. Love to you and the family. And Chad, it was nice to meet you, Sean's buddy. So at this point, I've wasted a great deal of time with my nonstop stream of babble. And I'm going to start reading. So we're going back to the Dragons of Ordinary Farm. We don't have much left. We've got maybe, what am I at? Chapter 24. There's maybe 28, 29 chapters in the whole thing. So we should be done with this before November is over, probably before Thanksgiving. Anyway, so, bum, 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 bum. Where did it go? I wish I could see while I was holding this thing up, because I can't. Okay, so this is chapter 24. Eek. There it is. And it's called Squirrel Meets World. I'm sure some of you old enough to remember the show I was making a joke about will see what I did there. To be fair, Deborah and I, although I'm sure the dippy, semi-jokey chapter titles were mostly mine, because that's what I do. Chapter 24, Squirrel Meets World. Tyler wasn't sure he understood everything. I'm not going to try and catch people up, by the way, because there's just too much going on at the moment. Lucinda found out that the dragon, she can sort of communicate mentally with Meseret the dragon. Meseret the dragon has basically said that Haneb, the scarred farm worker, has stolen her egg. Tyler's got some plan going on, which has been complicated by the arrival of Ed Stillman, Octavio Tinker's semi-relative, who wants Ordinary Farm for himself because he knows something's going on there, and he's a very rich man. Anyway, so that's all happening. Chapter 24, Squirrel Meets World. Oh, wait! Son of a gun! Shame on me. I haven't said hello to anybody, and we've got all these nice people here, and I haven't said hello. So let me say hello really quickly. Ronnie, good morning to you. Mark, good morning to you. Rosalba, good morning. And, oh, Milan, how nice. I'd love to get back to Milan someday soon. Olaf, my friend, good to see you. Good morning. Wouter, yes, good to see you too. Julian, or Julian, depending on where you're coming in from. Greetings to you. Deb Gates, hello and hi, and my best wishes to Oz. Hello, Ilva, darling. Good to see you. Yes, it's nice that we can make the time work again. Ray, good morning. Jessica, hello, hello. Yes, time is an elusive thing. Yes, yes, I explained what the balloons are. The reason the balloons are here, by the way, in this room, this is not where the balloons were upstairs, but we have learned now that balloons scare Big Dog Johnny to frickin' death. And Johnny will not come into the living room when the birthday balloons are there. And Deb has created a tradition of going out and getting birthday balloons for everybody's birthday, just as a festive way to welcome them to the table in the morning or whatever. Johnny hates them. They make him so nervous and upset. And he basically spent all of the birthday day in our room and would not even eat his meals because they were being given to him in the same room with the birthday balloons and stuff. And so that evening, so that he would finally eat something, I basically decided to remove the balloons and bring them down to my office. And some of them I think are in the birthday person's room. But the rest of them are behind me now. So that's why they're here. Not because it's my birthday, but because Johnny the dog is so nervous that the balloons terrify him. Anyway, so where was I? So yes, so that's answering Jessica's question. Cliff, yes, let's do the time warp again. Indeed. Holger, good morning to you. And who else have we got here? I know. Hello, Kristen. Good to see you. No, I'm not missing. I'm here. Jeremy, hello. Yes, in an hour or two, things will be confused. The interesting thing here is I started at 1 a.m. and I will finish at 1 a.m. So dig that. May, hello. Good to see you. Good morning to you. Okay, so that's everybody. I know that Petra, who is one of our regular, one of the usual suspects, Petra checked in to say that she had to go do something today, which I thought was very sweet. People like actually let me know, that like I'm sorry I'm not going to be here today, like I was the teacher or something. I don't know. It amused me. Anyway, so hello everybody. Thank you for joining me. Chapter 24, Squirrel Meets World. Excuse me. Tyler wasn't sure he understood everything she was saying. His sister was pretty worked up. So hang on. The dragon talked to you? Not talked, not exactly, but he totally communicated with me, Tyler. I'm not kidding. I could get most of what it meant. It kept saying, she kept saying that Haneb stole her egg. And when I said it out loud, Haneb got this super guilty look and ran away. But why would he steal an egg? It's not like they don't feed people around here. Tyler, I'm serious. This is the craziest thing yet. I am being serious. And it may not be the craziest thing happening around here. Although talking dragons is pretty hard to beat. For a moment, Tyler thought she was going to go into her old hurt feelings act, but instead she finally noticed the papers spread all over his bed. What are you doing? And why did you just take off and disappear like that? Oh, yeah. Well, see, he was about to launch into an explanation of everything he'd been thinking, but something about her face made him say, instead, that is really amazingly weird what happened with the dragon, Luce. Do you think you can do it again? She seemed surprised to be asked. I don't know. Maybe. She was really upset, and I think she's on some kind of drugs. Tranquilized. She shook her head. I still don't understand why Haneb would steal an egg from her. Maybe she got that wrong. Lucinda frowned. She seemed pretty certain. But he wouldn't do that, would he? He's so nice. Tyler shrugged. Who knows? We're leaving in a couple of days, and we're not going to figure everything out by then. He saw her expression. Yes, even I admit it. We're not going to solve all the riddles. Not this time. These people are crazy, and this place is totally nuts. It's like someone crashed a bunch of amusement park rides together. Like, whee, it's the haunted monster time travel train. Lucinda laughed. Okay, now I'm asking again. What's all the paper? Why did you take off and leave me to do all the work? Sorry about that. I was just trying to find out more about the continuoscope. Because I have an idea. Another idea? How are we going to get almost killed this time? Now Tyler laughed. Hey, you're the one who keeps messing with the dragons, not me. Just tell me your idea. Okay, but first I want to hide all this stuff. I already took notes on the parts I want to look up at the library, so I don't need to take it with me. Notes? Library? Lucinda pretended to look around the room. Where did my little brother go? Someone stole my little brother. Very funny. But I'm not kidding. We have to hide it. Gideon will freak out if he knows we found all this stuff and didn't tell him. Besides, the Wicked Witch is going to be going through these rooms after we're gone. Lucinda shivered. I don't know. Maybe we should hide it somewhere else on the farm. Like the reptile barn or something. When? And it might be hard to get to it when we come back next time. If we come back. Lucinda actually sounded like she wanted to, despite all the frightening, crazy things that had happened. Tyler was impressed. How about our bathroom, she asked. Is there anywhere to hide it in there? They trooped in and began investigating. After a bit, Tyler stood on the toilet seat and began pushing at the boards of the ceiling until he found one that was loose. I think I could get this off, he said as he began to wiggle it back and forth. Lucinda hardly seemed to hear him. She was staring at Tyler's hairbrush on the counter of the sink, like she was hypnotized. When he had the board off, he held it out in his hand. "Get me the stuff, would you? I just want to see if it fits up here okay." But his sister didn't respond. "Lucinda?" "Oh, Tyler." She sounded really upset. "I think I know how that horrible squirrel kept finding you." "What do you mean?" "Mrs. Needle. She made me get some hairs from your hairbrush. I just remembered." She shook her head. "It seems like kind of a dream, but I'm sure it's real." "What are you talking about? Hair?" She told him a strange, disjointed story about drinking tea and watching sleight-of-hand tricks in Mrs. Needle's room. "I can't remember when it happened, but that's like voodoo, isn't it? They take your hair and make a doll or something? Oh, Tyler, I'm so sorry. She tricked me." For about half a moment, he remembered that nasty, hissing, yellow-eyed creature chasing after him and was really angry with her. That was Lucinda's big problem. She wanted to pretend like things were okay even when they weren't. Oh, no, Mrs. Needle was a perfectly nice lady. Then Tyler looked at his sister again and really saw the misery on her face, her red, brimming eyes. "It's okay, Luce. She tricked you. It would have fooled me, too. In fact, she probably gave you some kind of drugs or something." She wiped the tears from her eyes with an angry swipe of her hand. "I hate her. How could anyone be so mean?" "Hey, she's a witch." He meant it as a joke, but saying it suddenly made it real to him again. Their enemies were not bullies from school or snoopy assistant principals making sure they didn't talk too loud at the lunch tables. No, one of them was a real witch who could do magic. Another was a super rich guy who wanted the farm and would send crooks and spies to get it for him. People who would probably bump off a couple of nosy kids if they got in the way. Tyler suddenly felt a bit weak in the knees. "Come on," he told Lucinda. "Let's go get the stuff and hide it." They had just picked up the diary and other papers when something banged against the curtained window and they both jumped. "It's okay," he said. "It's just Zaza." He lifted the curtain, looking around for the squirrel, then opened the window and let the monkey in. She hopped fluttered onto the bed, then up to Tyler's shoulder, chattering softly. "I was wondering when you were going to drop by," he said, digging for some pieces of dried apple he had in his pocket. Zaza patted Tyler's hair in excitement, then grabbed for the apple. Tyler scratched her little round head. "I'm going to miss you. I wish I could take you with me." He laughed. "Man, everybody at school would go nuts." "I'd like to bring Alamu to school," said Lucinda, "on a leash. Allison Keltner and those other snooty girls from the swimming club wouldn't be going, 'I have one of those, but it's bigger.' Not about him, would they?" She chortled. "Then I'd let him burn Allison's hair off." "Whoa, sis, you're getting pretty hardcore." Talk about the dragons reminded him of something. "Hey, Zaza," he said, scratching her chin. "Do you know where that continuous scope thing is? Do you?" He gave her the last piece of apple. "If you know where it is, I'd sure like to know." Tiny pieces of chewed fruit fell from Zaza's hands into the neck of Tyler's t-shirt. "She doesn't understand you," said Lucinda indulgently. "Oh, no?" said Tyler. "Who'd have thought that the dragon could understand you? Come on." He started gathering up the papers. "Let's finish hiding this. And I never told you my idea, Lucinda." "Oh, yeah. What is it?" "You know the ghost haunting the mirror in the library? I think it's Grace." All through dinner, Tyler watched the other residents of Ordinary Farm, wondering what they knew and what they might be hiding. Ragnar had told them the histories of most of the other farmhands. Haneb had come from the ancient Middle East. He had been a child when Gideon brought him back, along with the two dragons, who had also been babies. Lucinda had been very interested in Haneb's background. Tyler figured she had a soft spot for the scarred man and was hoping there was some reason that he'd done what the dragon believed he'd done, other than to make a king-sized omelet. The three amigos were Mongolian herdsmen, which was pretty much what they seemed like. The only surprise about them was that they had come from no farther back than the early part of the 20th century. Tyler would have been equally willing to believe they had been born 2,000 years or more in the past. Things hadn't changed much in Mongolia during that time, apparently. The only one that Ragnar had seemed reluctant to talk about was Caesar, and not because of the old man himself. "Someone else came with him," was all Ragnar had said. "A very evil man named Kingari. I have met many fearful men and beasts, but no other has put unease into me as he did. He is the only one of us who has left the farm, and if we never see him again, that will go well with me." If the 6.5-foot Viking was afraid of someone, Tyler didn't really want to meet the guy either. Sarah was from medieval Germany, Azinza, some kind of disgraced princess from West Africa, Pema from ancient Tibet. Caesar and the mysterious Kingari had both come from the American South before the Civil War. In fact, every one of the people of Ordinary Farm seemed to have some amazing story, and that was leaving out Mr. Walkwell, a creature as rare as the unicorns and dragons he took care of. It was so frustrating to find this out so soon before leaving. And what if they weren't invited back? Even if Gideon didn't know all the trouble they'd been into, he didn't exactly seem to be in love with having them. Tyler tried not to think about what Colin had said about Mrs. Needle fixing their memories. He watched his great-uncle, who was making one of his infrequent appearances at the dinner table. The old man was talking animatedly with Mr. Walkwell, but still managing to put away a fair quantity of macaroni casserole, which seemed to be a good sign. From overheard snatches, Tyler could tell that Mr. Walkwell was discussing the intruder he had caught, and Gideon, at least for today, was invigorated by it and seemed to have more purpose to him. "If I tell him I think I found Grace, he'll have to bring us back, won't he? And if I tell him that I found my way back out of the fault line, he'll want me around to help." Tyler almost opened his mouth to say something, but a chill ran over him, and he turned to catch the barest moment of Mrs. Needle's dark, cold eyes on him before she looked away. Maybe for once he'd hold off for a little while, Tyler decided. Play it safe, because he was beginning to understand that more was at stake here than just an old man collecting crazy animals out of a hole in time. Tyler knew he really should get some sleep. Even if tomorrow was their last day on the farm, they still had to get up at the same horribly early hour. But his mind would not rest. He sat in bed with the same questions going through his head over and over like birds fluttering in a cage that was too small. Was the spirit in the mirror really Grace, Gideon's lost wife? How serious was the threat to Gideon and the farm from that Stillman guy that Ragnar had told them about? Could dragons really talk, and could his sister understand them? And, perhaps most puzzling of all, had he really fallen into a hole in time, then found his own way out again? And could he do it again? Everyone said that only the continuous scope would allow someone to navigate the fault line. Was he, Tyler Jenkins, special, or had he just been incredibly lucky? Something flickered at the corner of his eye, drawing his attention. He looked up to see Zaza's wide-eyed face at the window. Tyler got out of bed and threw open the window, but she only hopped around his window frame in agitation, then threw herself backward into the air before swooping back up again. "What's the matter, Zaza?" he asked quietly, in case the black squirrel had returned. She climbed onto his shoulder and chattered at him, her tail lashing. The fur on it was all puffed out, like she was spooked or something. Tyler peered past her, but saw only darkness. He was about to climb back into bed when something glinted below him. Tyler leaned forward and squinted into the night, but couldn't see anything. Then a beam of light hit him in the eyes. Zaza let out a chirp of fear and leaped off him and out the window. Tyler rubbed his eyes, dazzled. A trio of dark shapes stood on the ground below, swinging flashlights around. For a moment he thought they were Stillman's spies, and his heart raced. Then he realized that unless they had been recruited from Munchkinland, they were too small to be grown-ups. There were 3 of them, and he suddenly realized they seemed more than a bit familiar. "Tyler?" the stockiest one called up to him. "That you, man? Oh, boy, this house goes on forever. We thought we were never going to find you." "Steve Carrillo," Tyler said in a loud whisper. "What are you guys doing here?" "No, don't answer. Just don't move. Stay quiet, and I'll be down in a second. And turn off those flashlights." Tyler pulled his clothes on right over his pajamas, then hurried across the corridor and woke up Lucinda. She followed him on tiptoes down the stairs. Outside, they found all 3 Carrillos, Stephen and his sisters, Carmen and Alma, wearing dark hooded sweatshirts and dark pants and carrying flashlights. "You look like you're going to the ninja convention or something," Tyler whispered. He looked back at the house to see if anyone was obviously watching, but the only lights were at the far end, the kitchen and dining room. "Why are you here?" "Dude, we only came to find out if you were dead or not," said Steve. "I told him we shouldn't do this, but Stephen thinks he's a spy or something," said Carmen. "He said we could find you guys' room easy." She added, "My brother, the genius." Steve said, "Actually, yeah, we were about to give up when we saw you hanging out the window. How come you 2 never called us back?" "What do you mean, called you back?" asked Lucinda. "We left like 20 messages," Stephen said. "She always said you were out somewhere doing chores." "She?" asked Lucinda. "You mean Mrs. Needle?" Tyler was getting nervous now. "Lucinda, we have to get them out of here before someone hears us." "We didn't mean to get you in trouble," said Alma. "But Stephen kept saying maybe they murdered you or something." No, we're fine, but we've got to get you away from the house or we're all definitely in a lot of trouble." Tyler couldn't even guess what Uncle Gideon would do if he knew the Carrillo kids were on the property. Go crazy, just for starters. He was about to lead them around the back of the house toward the sick barn when he saw a movement at the corner of his eye, something slinking by above their heads. He looked up and with a sinking heart saw a dark shape hunkering down along the roofline. The squirrel. That rotten, nasty squirrel. "It's probably not really happy with me either after last time," he thought. "Wonder how long it was stuck in the fruit picker." How did the thing communicate with Mrs. Needle? Could it be telling her right now that there were strangers on the property? Was it too late already? Was she fetching Gideon? It didn't matter, Tyler realized. They had to assume she didn't know. He leaned close to Lucinda. "Take 'em to the library, but give me about 5 minutes first." "I don't want to go there, Tyler." "We have to. It's the only place that's far enough from the house that no one's going to know they're here." "We could just send them back the way they came." "No. They must have been incredibly lucky to get here without Mr. Walkwell or Ragnar spotting them. They wouldn't be that lucky twice." "Mr. Walkwell wouldn't hurt us," said Alma confidently. "He likes us." "It's a little more complicated than that," Tyler told her. "Look, Luce, just do it. Give me 5 minutes. I'll meet you there." And without waiting for any more conversation, he took off at a trot in the opposite direction from the library, across the farm toward the pastures and animal barns. Tyler had only put a few hundred feet between himself and the house when something ran up his leg from behind and bit him on the back between his shirt and pants. He let out a muffled shriek and tripped, crashing to the ground and rolling, the scratching, nipping thing still trapped against his body by his own clothes. As he struggled to get away, it was all Tyler could manage not to scream at the top of his lungs, but he knew that if he did that, there would be no turning back. The Carrillos would be found. Uncle Gideon would go thermonuclear, and he and Lucinda would be sent away never to return. He managed to pull his shirt up enough to get his hands around the scratching, struggling thing and throw it away from him. It hit the ground and rolled, and by the single dull light above the door of a nearby barn, he saw the black squirrel spring back onto its feet, its tail held high behind its back, its yellow eyes almost glowing with malice. It was by far the largest squirrel he'd ever seen, big as a large house cat. It took a few skittering steps toward him and hissed like a snake. Tyler turned and ran. At first he thought the squirrel would only follow him a little ways, then go back to the trees and rooftops where it felt comfortable. But when he looked back, the thing was digging along the ground after him like a mad black rabbit. Tyler swore under his breath. He didn't think the creature could actually kill him. Could it? But it could sure rip him up with those vicious claws and teeth, and it already had him bleeding in a half-dozen places, wounds that were now beginning to sting with every step. Tyler was headed toward the big stretch of open land where the unicorns lived, trying frantically to think of ways he could escape the creature, but not coming up with any. He scrambled over a fence, but had gone only a few more steps before the squirrel caught up and leaped onto him again, scrabbling its way up his side and back and shoulder straight onto his head. Now Tyler did scream and threw up his arms, managing by pure luck to dislodge the creature before it got its claws sunk into his scalp. It hissed again as it fell, and when it hit the ground it turned and came after him. He could almost swear its chatter was a language, and the words were not friendly ones. At the last moment he found a fallen branch from one of the live oaks, and just as the black squirrel took a bounding leap toward him again, he swung and managed to smack it hard. The squirrel fell, but got up, leaping up his arm so quickly that it was halfway through the twigs and dried leaves at the end of the stick before he could throw the branch away with the squirrel in it. This time he did not bother to look back, but simply ran across the pasture as fast as he could. "I'm going to be murdered by a squirrel." He was too frightened even to be embarrassed, but it was certainly going to be the stupidest death of any student in the history of Chavez Middle School. Tyler was out onto open land now, with dry, knee-high grass and only an occasional stunted tree. Just before him was the long, low trough where the unicorns came to feed, rushing in like a hurricane when Mr. Walkwell or one of the herdsmen summoned them. And there, at last, was a gleam of an idea. As he ran through the grass, he bent and picked up the first stick he passed, but it was so thin he threw it away. The second one was too heavy to be much use in defending himself from something as small and quick as the squirrel, but Tyler had a different idea. When he reached the trough, he ran around it in a tight circle, banging on it with the stick as hard as he could, over and over. A dozen yards away, the dark, compact shape of the squirrel appeared from a clump of high grass and hopped toward him, little more than a shadow in the light of a partial summer noon. Tyler put the trough between him and the squirrel and waited. It hopped closer. Now he could hear its hiss, loud as a tea kettle. He held the stick up in front of him, and the squirrel stopped, waiting to see what he would do. They stared at each other, and Tyler felt as if he was looking at something that was more than a mere animal. There was a nasty, cruel little intelligence behind those slotted eyes. Then he heard the sound, that rumble like an approaching storm, and his heart seemed to swell in his chest. He hadn't known what they would do at night, if they were even close enough to hear. The rumble grew louder. The squirrel froze, looking around, and the yellow eyes bulged. "Yeah!" Tyler screamed. "Yeah! How you like me now?" He turned and sprinted for the nearest tree. The squirrel hesitated a moment, and that was a moment too long. As it jumped after him, the unicorn suddenly burst out of the trees at the top of the nearest rise and came crashing into the meadow like a flood from a ruptured dam, right over the spot where the squirrel was leaping through the low grass. Within moments, the entire pasture around Tyler's tree was a seething ocean of pale sides and swinging manes, of kicking hooves and needle-sharp horns. The unicorns finally galloped off 10 minutes later, clearly irritated that they had been summoned for no purpose, that they had found no food in their trough. Tyler climbed down and began limping his way back toward the library, promising silently that he would make it up to them someday. He owed them. Nothing else seemed to be moving, although there might have been a slow, broken squirming in the trampled grass. "Hey, Squirrely! Kinda sucks to be you, huh?" he called over his shoulder. As he pulled the library door open, Lucinda ran to meet him with a flashlight. "Oh, Tyler," she moaned, "it's terrible. We'll figure out something to do. They can probably sneak back close to dawn. I don't think Mr. Walkwell's going to be out there all night long, do you?" "No, it's not that. Stephen's gone." "What? What are you talking about?" "Come on." She grabbed his arm and hustled him across the darkened library, their footsteps echoing. Tyler suddenly knew where they were going, and his heart sank. The door to the retiring room across from Octavio's portrait was open. Alma and Carmen were looking in every corner of the small room with their flashlights when Tyler arrived. Carmen, the older girl, shone her light at him. "Oh, Tyler, what happened to you?" Lucinda saw his wounds for the first time. "Oh, are you okay? Never mind me. What happened to Steve?" "We don't know," Lucinda said. "We were talking, then we looked up, and he wasn't there anymore. The door to this room was open, and he was just gone. He's not anywhere else in the library. We looked for him everywhere. He disappeared." Tyler stared at the mirror above the wash basin. At the moment, it was as dark as a piece of volcanic glass. He reached up a finger and tentatively touched the surface. His finger went straight through. "Oh, this is bad. Real bad." He swallowed and turned to the three girls. They looked terrified. Tyler wasn't too happy about things himself. I think I know where he's gone." And we have time to start another chapter. So this chapter is called, come on, there we go, A Mother's Heart. Chapter 25, A Mother's Heart. Lucinda stared at her brother. He was speaking English, but she couldn't understand him. "What do you mean? You're going in after him? Going in where?" He glanced at Carmen and Alma, who both looked frightened. "Never mind. We can't waste any more time. It might be bigger in there than it is in here. In fact, it could lead anywhere." "Tyler, what are you talking about?" Now Lucinda was beginning to be really scared, too. We have to get Ragnar or somebody." "No time." To her surprise, Tyler scrambled up onto the wash basin and braced himself on the frame, as if he wanted to take a really, really close look at his own face. She was just about to ask him what he was looking at so carefully when he closed his eyes and then let himself fall forward into the mirror, disappearing through its surface like a man making a perfect dive into still water. "Tyler!" she shouted, but he was gone. She scrambled forward in time to see him walking away from her. Her brother no longer existed on her side of the mirror, only inside the reflected world. The ghost Tyler disappeared around a corner. Behind her, Lucinda heard little Alma begin to cry. "What's going on?" demanded Carmen, who was close to tears herself. "This is totally crazy." Lucinda was fighting her own very strong urge to just run upstairs to her room and put her head under her pillows until the whole problem went away. Her brother had just jumped into a mirror. What next? She squeezed her eyes shut, fighting the urge to scream for help. "I just want to go home now. I really, really want to go home." She wanted to sleep in her own room and see her friends. She wanted to clamp on her headphones and listen to normal music and think about boys and television and what was happening at school. No monsters, no magical mirrors. But when Lucinda opened her eyes again, Alma and Carmen were staring at her, terrified, waiting for her to do something, and she realized that this was not the time to run away and hide. "It's okay," she told them. "Tyler knows what he's doing." "One thing at a time, Lucinda," she told herself. "So you guys came over here in the middle of the night because we never answered our messages?" Carmen looked at her terrified little sister and made a decision. She took a deep breath, and when she spoke, she no longer sounded like she was about to break down. We kept calling you, and that English lady kept saying you couldn't come to the phone or that you were busy. Always something. But you never called back, and our grandma was just nodding her head like she knew it all along, and we were wondering if you guys were sick or something. After a while, we were really worried." Alma nodded. "And then tonight, that helicopter. Steve said maybe it was one of those ambulance helicopters and that they might be sneaking you out to a hospital or something." I told him that was dumb," Carmen said. "But he was like, 'I'm going. You can't stop me.' So we came with him." Lucinda grabbed the girl's hand. "Hold on. What helicopter?" "It was this big one. Really big, but really quiet. It went right past our house about an hour after dark, and Steve and I saw it," Carmen explained. "For a long time, it just hovered by the edge of your property with most of its lights off. But then it went farther in, and I think it landed. I don't know. It was hard to see." Lucinda had a bad feeling. A big helicopter? That had to be the people that Mr. Walkwell and Ragnar were watching out for. Like that guy they'd captured out by Junction Road, the one they said was working for that Stillman guy. But a helicopter? Landing on the farm at night? She had to do something about this. "Listen," she told Carmen and Alma, "I have to go tell people what you saw. It's important that you guys don't go anywhere or let anyone see you. Really, really important. Trust me, just stay here and wait for Tyler to find Steven. He'll be back. They'll both be back." But even as she said it, she felt a cold squeeze in her chest, a dread as deep as the day their dad had told them he was moving out. She stared at the dark mirror, reflecting nothing at this moment but a shadowed wall. Where had her brother gone? What was happening to him right this moment? "Stay here," Carmen said. "By ourselves? Are you psycho?" "Trust me," Lucinda told her. "It'll be a lot less scary here than anywhere else." Little Alma looked at her solemnly. The girl's tears had dried now, and she seemed to have found her strength. "It's okay, Carmen," she told her sister. "We'll wait here, Lucinda. You go." Lucinda turned and ran across the library. And I think, just because I'm having a lot of throat irritation. I'm going to stop a little early tonight. I apologize also because there's a bunch of stuff about to happen in the chapter, and there's no really good place to stop for a little while. So forgive me for stopping a bit early and not cramming in every single bit. As I've often, as I've often said in the past, when I've had to stop a little earlier, ran out of something, or wanted to stop because of where I was in the thing. If you want to take the, we got like 4 or 5 minutes left before I'm going to wrap up. So if you wanted to send any questions or anything like that, this is, you know, a good time to do it. Since I am going to be here for another few minutes, and otherwise, who knows what if I'm not kept busy by responsible adult people? Who the heck knows what what I might get into, what kind of mischief? Because yeah, I'm prone to get into trouble if I'm left alone too long, and if I'm not given anything to talk about or to do. And since the only connection I have here is through my microphone and my camera, God knows it could get really bad. Anyway, but before that, sorry, I'm having a lot of scratchiness of voice tonight. I have no idea why. Could be, from smoking all those blunts, or my crack pipe. I don't know. Could be anything. So, but I am going to be coming back again tomorrow. We are just about to the time when the daylight savings, for those of you in my part of the world, daylight savings is going to switch back and is going to be an hour earlier. So at 1:55, it's 1:56 now. So at 2 o'clock, it's going to actually go back to 1 o'clock. So I will have started and ended at the same time. But because of that, for those of you not on daylight savings time, tomorrow's 7 p.m. reading is going to appear to be an hour earlier, I guess. We are falling back. It is fall. It'll be an hour earlier. So just so those of you who are going to show up for that as well, those of you in the United States of America. And what else was I going to talk about? Anything in particular? No. Just because I'm just filling time here, I have developed an obsession lately. We all kind of, especially during pandemics and when you're stuck and when you're, when, as I said before, when the news is depressing and things like that, it's always good to find things to be entertained by or interested in. So among the many other things that I've been doing to keep myself entertained and cheerful, I have become obsessed with terraria. That's, I guess, the plural of terrarium. Not so much to put critters inside them, at least not any large critters, but I'm really fascinated with the idea of sealed terrariums, where you basically put in a bunch of plants and soil and whatever, small life, microbial life. So maybe you either take it from salt water from the ocean and sand and all that, or you go to a forest stream and you get it that way or whatever, and you just sort of take potluck with whatever critters. And I think at some level that kind of stuff has always fascinated me. I think that's why I'm so into world building. I love worlds in miniature. But I've gotten quite interested in this stuff. So I'm watching these things, this kind of terrarium porn, where these people are making these super complicated things. But I'm mostly interested in the things where they basically just close the thing up after they've started it and then come back every few months and kind of check the animals and see what's in there and stuff like that. Because if you start with native soil of some kind and the right kind of plants and things, then you get all these little arthropods and worms and snails and things, and sometimes even slightly larger critters as well. And for some reason, maybe because I'm lazy, but the idea of an environment that you can just start. I guess part of it is because I spend so much goddamn time humoring dogs, cats, and young people that, the idea of an environment that you can put together and then just leave it the hell alone and it'll just continue doing its thing. And you just check in on it every now and then to see what's happening. I think that's very appealing to me. So I've been watching a whole lot of these things. to the point where I think that, when the spring comes, I'm going to start a couple of these myself just to see what, with my luck, they'll all die promptly, except for the algae or something. It's very hard to kill algae as long as you've got water. But so if I do something like that, I will share it with you, because they're quite interesting things. And I'm not, so some people do these gigantic, beautiful, huge, you know special, custom aquariums or custom terrariums, and they've got like exotic creatures in them and all that, and that's very cool. But that's not what I want. That's not what I'm interested in. I want, I guess, what it all comes down to, I want life to go on without me, so I can just like look at it and go like, oh, cool. They're doing fine. They don't need me. I don't have to get in there and change their litter box. I don't have to like hide the balloons so they're not scared, or have them walking on my face in the middle of the night because there's rain or whatever. All the crazy things are, or Walter walks on my face too, but he's tiny. He's the Chihuahua. And that's okay. That doesn't bother me so much. But when he wants your attention, he walks onto your chest and then he goes like this, in this horrible, shrill, high pitched thing. So I think there is a sort of charm to me in the idea of where you could just put living things into a jar and slam a top on it. They actually use things like, mason jars, right? Where you put the top on and then you do the little wire thing that locks it. So that idea, as somebody who's been playing human dad and pet dad for way too many years now, I find that quite soothing to contemplate. So that's what I'm doing. Anyway, it's 1:00. Thank you for bearing with me. I'm sorry I had to stop reading a little early, but doing voices at a certain point sometimes gets kind of raspy. So with that, I thank you for joining me. I hope those of you who can will join me tomorrow night when we continue with not only the exciting world of what's going on with the dragons, but as you will see, the exciting things that are going on inside the washstand mirror. Until that point, take good care of yourselves, and thank you for joining me. And I will be with you very soon, either tomorrow or the same time slot next week, except bearing in mind that I will now be on Pacific Standard Time, no longer on Pacific Daylight Time. So anyway, with all that said, good night, peace, take good care of yourselves, take good care of your loved ones and your friends and neighbors, and I will see you